So recruiting for the 2023 cycle is really starting to heat up, and I love it. And today we're going to be talking about the number one linebacker in the nation, a top 10 player in all of high school football, and a top player out the state of Texas in Anthony Hill. Hill just recently released his top six, and it's full of intriguing battles that we need to break down. But before we do, as always, you know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes and N for no. And given that two of the six schools Hill listed were in the SEC, do you believe he will be playing his collegiate ball in the SEC? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoy the content, like and comment down below. Those interactions are massive to content creators such as myself in both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all of that being said, let's hop right into this because this is going to be an intriguing battle. And like I said in the intro, given that two of the schools that Hill has listed are in the SEC, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. Not only are two of the schools in the SEC, but two more schools listed in Oklahoma and Texas are on a move to the SEC, which really prompts the question asked in today's video. But with that, we need to first discuss the six teams listed. And in no particular order, they are the Oklahoma Sooners, the Texas Longhorns, the Texas A&M Aggies, the USC Trojans, the Miami Hurricanes, and lastly, the Alabama Crimson Tide. And we will start with the in-state schools of Texas and Texas A&M. And aside from having the in-state card in their back pocket, Hill is a prospect that both of these institutions are going to be pushing for with everything they have. If we look at Texas A&M, they're coming off of a phenomenal recruiting class, and a lot of people think when that happens that these top-level recruits are less inclined to go and join. However, I think the opposite effect can be true. I think if you're a top-level recruit and you've just seen an institution have that level of success, you'll want to play with other talented individuals because you have more faith that they're going to be able to succeed at their job so that you can succeed at your job. And winning is fun, especially at the college football level, and having that level of talent puts so many eyes in Texas A&M because now the pressure is on for them to win something of massive consequence, and a player like Hill would absolutely love to be a part of that. So you know A&M is going to be hot on the trail, and they're coming off of a stellar recruiting class. And if we look at it, their defense has continued to get better under Jimbo Fisher. When you look at the talent they just added in and who they're after in the class of 2023, I don't expect that to change. But the Texas Longhorns are also going to be hot on the trail of Hill. And if I had to guess, and this is just purely my opinion, the inside linebacker position is going to be one that Texas really doubles down on in this cycle. They had a really good class last season whenever they were able to sign a top 10 recruiting class and a top 10 class in transfer portal acquisitions. But now that we fast forward, the inside linebacker is a position that they would love to double down on in the class of 2023. And it'd be awesome to get the number one linebacker who just happens to be the number two player in your state in Anthony Hill. And Texas has had success out of Denton Ryan getting Jatavion Sanders not long ago. So when we look at the Texas Longhorns, schematically, PK loves to do stuff with the linebacker positions, and now Texas adds in Gary Patterson to their staff, and he will be helping the Longhorns in a myriad of ways. Now, even though I don't expect Gary Patterson to be an on-field coach, and he hasn't been announced as such, just the presence of an individual that's so highly regarded in coaching circles is sure to add something to Texas's chances, whether that's how they approach this or what have you. It's just going to be interesting to see how this really goes about. But you know Hill is going to be a major prospect for the Texas Longhorns because their scheme is linebacker heavy, whether that's from the inside or the outside linebackers. Specifically for PK, it's those edge rushers, but even then, a linebacker with the versatility of Hill would be of massive importance for the Texas Longhorns in their future as Sark and company look to turn things around. But now let's go across the Red River to the Oklahoma Sooners. And Oklahoma's in a bit of an interesting position because when you look at the hires they made and the proximity, Norman, Oklahoma and Denton, Texas are not that far away. And so if being close to home is important to Anthony Hill, and I'm not saying it is, but when we're talking about these recruiting battles, it is important to bring up all factors. That could be a chip Oklahoma utilizes. But even outside of that, let's talk about the staff Oklahoma brought in and why that makes this intriguing. Because when you look at it, Oklahoma has never had a problem recruiting, but with this current staff, they're a defensive-minded group, and Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator at Clemson under some really elite defenses, but more specifically has worked with the linebacker position. And so if you put yourself in the shoes of a top-level recruit, and you know that a defensive coordinator has had success and had success working with your position group, and now they become a head coach at a new institution, that's going to raise some eyebrows, and you're going to be intrigued about that pitch, and deservedly so. Even outside of that, you know Oklahoma is going to be hitting the state of Texas hard because first and foremost, that's their rival. So they want to ensure that they're getting the guys they want out of that state. And secondly, they've had success at Denton Ryan, getting Billy Bowman and then getting Jackson Arnold out of Denton. Even though Jackson Arnold doesn't go to Denton Ryan, the Oklahoma Sooners have had immediate success in Denton under this new coaching staff, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that carries over. Now, the last thing I'll say for Oklahoma is with this new coaching staff, a lot of people, including myself, are wondering who the inevitable first big name in the defensive side of the ball for the class of 2023 will be for Brent Venables and company, and it could be Anthony Hill. It's just going to be interesting to see how this goes down. But now let's talk about Miami. The Miami Hurricanes are in an interesting situation as well. A lot of the teams listed are going to have eyes on their programs for various reasons, whether it's Texas A&M with the recruiting class they just got, with Alabama coming off of a national championship, and Miami, Oklahoma, and USC bringing in new coaching staff. So that's why this is such a fun battle. But if we look at Miami, Miami is a program that 20 years ago had supreme success, and they want to get back to that level. But more importantly, they need to start recruiting their own state. Now, I'm not saying that because I don't think they're not going to go after Anthony Hill hard. We're going to break that down. But Miami and the rest of these Florida schools really need to lock up their own state because of how much talent has been able to leave that state and not go to those Florida schools. So that's first and foremost. But secondly, as it pertains to the battle of Anthony Hill, Mario Cristobal can recruit with the best of them, and we know this. If we look at his time in Oregon, the Oregon Ducks were able to win multiple battles for top-tier recruits, including two of the more interesting linebacker prospects of recent memory in Justin Flo and Noah Sewell, in which they were able to get them both. So we know that Cristobal has had success, whether he was the recruiter or individuals on his staff were the recruiters, of getting in these top-level linebackers. He has some eyes thrust upon his program because the fan base of Miami wants this program to get back to where they were in recent history, but it's all about whether or not he's going to be able to make that jump. Mario Cristobal can recruit, but how's the development going to be? What's the battle in the ACC going to look like? And I'm certainly not asking these questions with any sort of doubt. These are just genuine questions I have moving forward. But as it pertains to Anthony Hill, you know that would be a major win for Cristobal and company to start locking up Florida, but then to go into another fertile ground in the state of Texas and pull a top 5 player out of Texas. That'd be a great way to start your campaign with the Hurricanes. Going to USC now, let's go from coast to coast, because the Trojans are also in a unique position because of the new coaching staff, but also a lot of the coaches that came from Oklahoma to USC have a familiarity with the Texas landscape and how to recruit it because of their time spent in Oklahoma. They had to recruit the state of Texas. So it's going to be interesting to see how those ties ultimately benefit USC in their pursuit of Texas talent, but namely in this video, Anthony Hill. Now, the interesting thing for USC is when we look at their class for 2023, it's got a lot of talent in it already, and it's interesting to see how it will grow. But the question I have is who's going to be the first defensive piece for Lincoln Riley and company? When we look at what USC has done recently in recruiting, they've been able to get in some big-name defensive guys. Whether that be Rayshawn Davis, Corey Foreman, or even last year, Damani Jackson, I'm just interested as to how the new regime is going to address defense. Because I don't think many people are going to question whether or not USC's offense is going to be able to turn it around. Under Lincoln Riley with Caleb Williams and the talent they have, I think that's a unit that's going to be fine. I don't have much worry about the Trojans' offense, but I am curious as to what the defense is going to look like. Anthony Hill would just be another talented piece to add into this USC team. for them to be able to keep pushing forward and take the next step. And finally, the Crimson Tide. And with the Crimson Tide, every recruiting class that has come to Alabama and stayed with Nick Saban has left with a national championship ring. On top of that, the Crimson Tide have been able to recruit Texas very well, especially in the class of 2021. Now, last year, they may not have had the success they would have liked, but because of that, you know they're going to be really present in the state of Texas in the class of 2023. Now, intriguingly enough, when we talk about this, Alabama's going to have a vacancy at the linebacking position after this year, with Henry To'oTo'o probably going to the NFL after this next coming up season. Now, the good news is there is talent at that position for the Crimson Tide, whether we're talking Sean Murphy, Deontay Lawson, Jalen Moody, or Kendrick Blackshire, but you never want to have a shortage of talent, because not long ago, Alabama fans saw 2 middle linebackers come in that were true freshmen and have success, but depth was an issue at the position. Getting in Anthony Hill creates competition. It creates competition amongst blue chip prospects, and it gives you depth no matter how the battle shakes out, which is of massive importance in the collegiate game, because football is a violent sport. Injuries are bound to happen, and having depth allows you to account for injuries easier than if you don't have depth. So this is a battle that's going to be very interesting to watch. Alabama is going to push very hard for Anthony Hill. They need the linebacking position to keep having that depth in case of injuries. Even though they already have some good depth, I don't think they're going to be shying away from a 5-star linebacker. But it is going to be tough to pull him out the state of Texas when both Texas and Texas A&M are on the trail. The Oklahoma Sooners are on the trail, and now you have a coast-to-coast battle in Miami and USC. But at the end of it all, I'm very interested in hearing from you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're excited to see in this battle. That's it. See ya.